sometimes wonder how these guys are able to do some of the things that they do with their bodies.
He has played every play as hard as he could.
Sometimes I wonder if it's wise.
What's that? Can't see.
Playing with pain is a fact of life in the NFL.
Everybody plays hurt, and there's so many that you'll never hear about.
And McNabb is hurt.
Gutsy for sure. But going into a game knowing you have a torn ACL or a broken leg,
what a gutty performance.
That's the attitude of greatness for a guy to really overcome an injury.
And then he's clobbered.
Nobody envisions himself catching a pass and having Ronnie Lott knock them 360 degrees in the air and land on their head.
Oh, my God!
People actually thought he was dead.
Hello, baby! Call him gutsy or just plain crazy. But the ability to overcome devastating trauma, then turn in a historic performance, defines the players in our list.
Never underestimate the heart of a champion. Never underestimate a football player's toughness. Doesn't matter what position. Those guys are cut from different cloth.
The number 10 gutsiest performance of all time. Donovan McNabb plays on a broken ankle.
I can't imagine a more polarizing guy in any other city than Donovan McNabb.
In Philadelphia, McNabb has always been judged.
Philly fans say, not tough enough. I mean, wow, that debate doesn't happen anywhere else about anyone.
you can't complain about his ability as a quarterback, yet they do because they look at his personality. He's cool, and he thinks he's cool, and he's going to tell you that he's cool. Don't confuse the fact that he's not a tough guy and or willing to go out and sacrifice his body.
In one gutsy 2002 performance, he scored a perfect 10 in our countdown.
Caught for a touchdown by Todd Pinkston.
What Donovan McNabb did was gutsy.
He's making plays on a bad ankle, and he made that look like he had done it every day of his life.
If that doesn't take guts, knowing there's something wrong with your ankle, and come out and playing and having a great game, I don't know what you're looking at.
The Philadelphia Eagles select Donovan McNabb.
Whether it was booing him at the draft or cringing at his Super Bowl sickness,
Can you imagine what he'd be doing if he were healthy?
Philly fans kept McNabb at arm's length.
That's played against him. And the fact that Donovan has denied that he threw up in the Super Bowl when several of his teammates who were standing right there and may have gotten some on their cleats have said, oh no, he threw up in the Super Bowl. But it doesn't stop him from being a tough guy. He's willing, able, and oftentimes capable of playing in pain.
He's going to stop and be hit and brought down and sacked. The football comes loose, and McNabb is hurt.
McNabb got twisted like a pretzel, and he was almost doubled over backwards.
He's starting to kind of, like a warrior, get back up to his feet.
And at that point, you kind of thought maybe the game was lost.
He refused an x-ray. He had to know something was wrong. If you're going to tell me that's not as gutsy as it gets, you want to find out. I mean, this could be your career.
And it is caught for a touchdown.
I love pain, and maybe a little different than others, but for me, pain doesn't affect me.
Shovel passes to Levens, and he runs in for the touchdown.
Look at McNabb hobbling. He can't even run.
He can hardly walk.
Played the whole second half of that game on one leg. When he would throw and that foot will always be in the air. So he basically one arm in the ball to fight through the pain he was going through. That was real gutsy.
The fact that he stuck in there and then had a career game, 20 for 25 and 4 TDs, was mind-blowing.
Now he's rolling out, and he fires the football, and it is complete to Staley, who is pushing and trying to get in, and he is for a touchdown. A gutsy performance by McNabb today.
Not until after the game did our number 10 gutsiest performer find out that he played on a broken ankle.
It's incredible. Do people realize that? A broken ankle?
And Philly fans still think he's kind of soft.
What do you have to do in Philadelphia? I mean, I guess you have to beat up on Apollo Creed.
Coming up, QBs take it on the chin, the ribs, and the knees.
That are going 100 million miles an hour, you can get killed.
Sometimes players' guts get a boost from special equipment. Larry Wilson had his casts, which helped him play with 2 broken hands. Steve DeBerg played with a pin in his pinky and a mic in his face mask.
I don't think they were going to have any problems at all.
But nowhere did technology and guts come together better than in our next performance.
We've been in a video game.
The number 9 gutsiest performance of all time. Dan Pastorini plays with cracked ribs.
Who was the first person who looked at a cow? Said, you know what? I'm going to pull on those things, and whatever comes out, I'm going to drink it.
Don't try this at home now.
To be the first to do anything takes unbelievable stones.
Dan Pastorini knows what being a pioneer is all about. In 1978, he became the first player in history to wear a flak jacket. It helped him turn in our number 9 gutsiest performance, and then it became a standard piece of quarterback equipment.
You can see underneath the jerseys, they all wear them.
He wears a flak jacket so he doesn't get killed.
Protects their ribs, their sternum, and they still have full motion. Now, quarterback would just as soon go without his jock as he would his flak jacket.
I will call Dan Pastorini gutsy.
If you just joined us, Dan Pastorini out of the ball game.
He broke 3 ribs in this one game, and he was in the hospital.
And everybody's going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do?
Into his hospital room come these 2 guys he has never seen before. One guy is carrying a paper bag, and the other guy is carrying a baseball bat.
And Dan's like, oh my God, this is some guy's coming to beat me to death.
But the gentleman says, don't be alarmed. Reaches in the paper bag, says, I think I have something here that can protect your ribs. He puts on the flak jacket, and his friend takes the baseball bat and starts clubbing away at the flak jacket.
After several licks, I think Pastorini was sold. This thing was going to hold up to the scrutiny of a 275-pound defensive lineman.
And that's how the flak jacket was invented by Byron Donsis.
Decades before the advent of the Reebok pumps, the flak jacket prototype was assembled with inflatable chambers. When word spread of this new magic vest, critics claimed that Byron Donsis, even more than his invention, was full of hot air.
I didn't think he'd be able to do anything. I don't care what kind of jacket he had on.
You can see underneath the jersey the flak vest.
But it was phenomenal the way he was able to work with that thing.
It does a great job, and it does not restrict the quarterback because that whole outfit only weighs 7 ounces.
Miami's going to have to do something to stop Dan Pastorini.
With the jacket securing his ribs, he went on to perform superbly.
Pastorini throws. Touchdown.
The second quarter where Dan Pastorini passed for nearly 200 yards. Brilliant numbers.
For a healthy man, and he's hurting.
In 3 halves of postseason play, Pastorini now 491 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's doing it.
You're so banged up going into this game, and yet you threw so extremely well.
Pastorini is one of the most courageous players that ever played in the league, but nobody really talks about it because he never really let on.
You know, the little nicks and bruises don't hurt when it counts.
Fans used to never appreciate him until 78. When you got an injury like cracked ribs, you can hardly breathe. Pastorini played.
Dan Pastorini is a tough individual. He knows he's going to take some licks, and brother, there it is, the right rib.
And that lifted the team.
He's playing this well, hurt. Humphills may decide next year to make sure he's hurt before every ball game.
Behind Pastorini, the upstart Oilers advanced all the way to the AFC title game.
Touchdown, Houston Oilers.
He earned a lot of admiration.
Everybody in this room deserves a game ball, but don't believe anybody deserves one more than number 7.
The number 8 gutsiest performance of all time. Philip Rivers plays with a torn ACL.
Going into the AFC Championship game in 2007, LaDainian Tomlinson was obviously on this pedestal, and Philip Rivers was a guy whose mouth was writing checks his play couldn't cash.
Philip's not afraid to jaw with anybody.
Yelling at opposing fans.
He's carrying on a conversation saying, I'll be back.
Yelling at opposing players.
Who knows what Philip Rivers was saying to Richard Seymour?
Some of the players said, wow, usually a quarterback doesn't do that. But now,
his teammates will never look at him the same.
Rivers was gutsy. There's no question.
During 1 week in January 2007, Philip Rivers injured his knee in a divisional win over the Colts.
Was he limping going off?
Underwent secret surgery the next day.
I'm going to do all I can to be ready at this point. Yeah, that's all I got for you.
Played the entire AFC title game.
Yes, indeed. Philip Rivers is coming out.
Then disclosed to the world that he faced the Patriots on a partially torn ACL.
They'd have to tie him down to keep him out of that game.
Put it all together, and you've got our number 8 gutsiest performance.
A lot of guys guys would have put their hand up and said, I can't play. He did not do that.
What a gutty performance by this quarterback.
To go out there and put his knee and ultimately his career on the line, it has to go down as one of the gutsiest performances.
You wonder if Phillip Rivers' courage didn't undermine his team's chance against a 17-0 New England Patriots.
He's got a big brace on there. You can see it.
Billy Volek led him to a victory against Indianapolis the week before.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
But here's the deal. Rivers is your leader.
Think about it.
You want to put Billy Volek, who really hasn't played in this situation? No. I want to play with the guy that's been under center all year long.
Of course, everyone was focused on Rivers playing through an anterior cruciate ligament tear. I was wondering why more people weren't focusing on some of the poor passes that he was throwing.
This is underthrown 10 yards, even though it's downwind.
You got a bum knee. You can barely walk. Playing a game with athletes that are going 100 million miles an hour.
Rivers took a hit. Somehow he's back up.
I don't think anyone will ever accuse Phillip Rivers of being soft, but it may very well have kept his team out of the Super Bowl.
Real guts is working a job where you're physically in danger, or you have a 350-pound lineman coming at you.
Phillip Rivers faced it all in the number 8 gutsiest performance, and the world realized that he's the lead charger.
LT and Phillip Rivers' position sort of swung. Tomlinson sits there in a Yoda-like figure with his helmet on, and Phillip Rivers merely gets the Chargers into the Super Bowl.
That game against New England convinced every teammate he is the ultimate gamer.
Now his play is writing the checks as opposed to his mouth.
Coming up, our gutsiest players confront aches, pains,
and you, Bill Belichick.
Football can be a jungle, especially in Cincinnati.
Get their ass out right now.
Tim Crumry was the fierce heart of the Bengals Super Bowl defense.
Watch the leg. Oh, that is... Ooh, and look at the foot. I don't think we want to see that one again.
Ooh.
You just never know. On one snap, it might be all over.
With an iron will and a steel rod in his leg, he returned the very next season.
I wanted to get to the Super Bowl, and if you could tell me today that I could do that again, you can break the other leg right now.
In 1980, Bengals receiver Pat McInally suffered a numbing hit.
There was a hush. People actually thought he was dead.
I mean, I really wanted to cry.
And when he came to in the locker room, the doctors asked, "Are you all right? Can you play?"
I think that's part of the reason that I was able to come back in the game. I think I was so happy that 15 minutes later I was well, other than the pain.
This should have made gutsiest performances of all time, and it's an outrage that it's not in there.
The number 7 gutsiest performance of all time. Terrell Davis's Super Bowl migraine.
The price that he paid for his teammates that day and what he was willing to do for us to get it done tells you a lot about him.
Hey, we're ready for you. Have a good flight, TD.
Just do it.
Terrell Davis was the high-flying ace running back the Broncos needed to get back to the Super Bowl in 1997.
Yeah, we have John Elway, but our bread and butter for us to win in the playoffs, we got to ride Terrell Davis.
But it was Davis's gutsy ability to fly blind that earned him the number 7 spot on our list.
What's that? Can't see. Okay, just do this. You don't worry about seeing on this place because we're going to fake it to you.
If Terrell Davis had not been discovered in the 6th round of the draft by the Broncos, I'm not sure that John Elway would have retired with a Super Bowl ring. He was the guy that completed that football team.
He went ahead with 176 yards and about 30 carries.
Low-round draft pick, but the guy just kept getting better and better. 1,100 his first year, 1,500 his second year, 1,700.
In 97, with 3 100-yard playoff games, Davis flew the Broncos into the stratosphere.
Denver goes to the Super Bowl. Terrell Davis, outside 40, 35-30. Inside the 25, still at speed, inside the 20. Okay, goal line. Elway, handoff, Davis, into the end zone, touchdown! Yeah!
But on the brightest day of his career, storm clouds from his past rolled in.
TDs, can't see, can't focus.
You all right, getting better?
Terrell Davis suffered from migraines.
Davis may be shaken up, and this would be costly for the Broncos.
Migraines makes you nauseous. It makes you where everything is so sensitive, light, smell, sound. Anything is intensified about 10 times. And all the games I've ever played in my life, it had to come on this Sunday. I'm just praying to God that they, not now. And I noticed I had a headache, and I went over to Mike, and I told him I couldn't see.
What's that? Can't see.
His response was something like, well, it doesn't matter if you can see or not.
You don't worry about seeing on this place because we're going to fake it to you.
We sort of need you in this game so that they think we're going to run the football.
But if you're not in there, they won't believe we're going to run, okay?
Terrell got to the huddle. He says, hey, I can't see you. So I said, all right, well, you just run and I'll adjust to you.
Shut up!
The last minute, I did make a nice little move to get out of his way. So I could see enough to make just one person miss, but that was about it.
John, it will trot into the end zone. Touchdown.
With Denver up by only a field goal, Davis missed nearly the entire second quarter.
And the biggest question now is, where's Terrell?
We obviously didn't gain 1 yard that particular quarter running the ball. So there was a noticeable absence of TD.
We got the medication in him and it should come back real quick.
Lucky for us, his vision was starting to come back.
Davis to the end zone. Touchdown! Oh, yeah!
I remember late in the game thinking, man, we can't lose. I don't want to lose. Not now. I don't want to lose right now.
Into the end zone, rocking, standing up.
Our number 7 gutsiest performer set a Super Bowl record with 3 rushing touchdowns and was named the game's MVP.
They have shocked everybody, and they have won Super Bowl 32.
The number 6 gutsiest performance of all time. Gale Sayers' comeback from a knee injury.
6th. He came back from knee surgery and was a leading rusher the next year. They made a movie, Bryant song about it. 6th.
Give me 18 inches of daylight. That's all I need.
Well, maybe it was 24 inches of daylight.
He was the most magical and elusive runner the game has ever seen.
In 1968, his run to greatness took a terrible turn.
Bears suffered a devastating blow when Sayers was cut down.
A knee injury that would be the death knell for anybody back then. No clinics where you could just go and get scoped, cleaned out. We take that for granted these days.
Gale Sayers was born to run, and there was not much going to stop him.
In 1965, Sayers came streaking out of college as the Kansas Comet, propelled by speed and elusiveness early in his career.
It's the greatest rookie year that any player had ever had. He scored 22 touchdowns in a 12-game season, and he had 6 in one game.
Sayers, NFL Rookie of the Year, a one-man Gale, dashing 85 dazzling yards on the longest punt return of the season. Here he is, galloping Gale, carrying the mail.
They should have put him in the Hall of Fame that night. He was like trying to catch liquid mercury with your bare hands.
An amoeba-like, or paramecium, split into 2 things, and the defensive people went at the wrong one.
It almost got like Keystone Cops when you watched him run the football.
Gale Sayers would come down and put a move on you. If you made the tackle at the wrong time, you'd break your wrist, hit the ground, but he'd miss it.
One man, he was dead. He didn't know it, but I knew it.
His second season, he led the league in rushing, and in 1968, he was averaging over 6 yards a carry before his injury.
When he got hurt, they didn't even have no carts. They took him off like he was a World War I wounded veteran. A stretcher. It was like the Civil War, like in Gone with the Wind.
They put their leg back together with cat gut and different stuff, and which I don't even want to talk about. I had 3 ligaments torn out of 4, and usually the team would say, hey, pack your bags and go home, you through. I wanted to prove that you could come back off of a knee injury in 1 year. I proved that you could come back. Give me 18 inches of daylight. That's all I need.
6th. Next year he comes back and gains 1,200 yards on 4.2 yards a carry.
This most elusive of runners that's ripping off 20, 30, 40-yard plays all the time. To think that he would go through a whole season and not have a run longer than 28 yards, but at the end of the year, he was still the best runner in football.
What he counted on was his ability to shift gears, to shift directions very quickly, and to accelerate. The fact that he rushed for over 1,000 yards was phenomenal.
He came back and showed a style that people didn't know, a toughness. He showed strength and power even though he was not big. And to come back and play on that injury, he inspired a lot of people.
Sayers is a magical name in NFL annals, and he's proof that you don't have to have a 10, 15-year career to make Canton.
Our number 6 gutsiest performer strolled into the Hall of Fame as the youngest member ever inducted.
His light will never be seen again.
Coming up next, confronting hard hits and heartbreak.
The legend grew a bit. It made a great player even greater.
No Huddle. Before we continue our countdown of the top 10 gutsiest performances of all time, let's recap the list so far.
Number 10, whether Eagles fans like to admit it, McNabb's 4 touchdown passes prove it.
Guts.
Number 9, Pastorini's all but bulletproof finish new pass.
Phillips may decide next year to make sure he's hurt before every ball game.
Number 8, Philip Rivers lets his guts do the talking.
Rivers was gutsy. There's no question.
Number 7, Terrell Davis ignores the pain of a migraine.
You don't worry about seeing on this place because we're going to fake it to you the 15 lead.
Number 6, Gale Sayers proves the doomsayers wrong.
Gale Sayers was born to run, and there was not much going to stop him.
The number 5 gutsiest performance of all time. Brett Favre plays for his father.
Brett Favre.
Green light, Jason!
He's got guts, courage, cojones, however you want to put it.
Brett Favre knows what it's like to play through pain.
You can see that right thumb has a squint on it.
In college, he beat Alabama just 6 weeks after losing nearly 30 inches of his intestines.
I'm in so much pain right now, I can hardly raise out of this bed.
But it took a different type of guts for Favre to absorb the blow that came on December 21st, 2003, when his father Irvin died of a heart attack one day before the Packers' Monday night game in Oakland.
My condolences go out to Brett and his lovely wife, Deanna.
I knew right away his first thought was probably Irvin, and he said, "Don't you quit."
And I wasn't going to let him quit.
Take care of business.
He knows when to be business, and he knows when to play.
Get your ass out there and play. Are you crazy? I could see him saying that.
Cool as it is, Brett Favre had to make a decision. Does he play tonight or doesn't he play tonight? He has chosen to play.
Butterflies is an understatement. I was the most nervous I've ever been in a game.
Before Favre demonstrated his emotional guts to the world by taking the field, our number 5 performer showed the Packers the special stuff he's made of in a team meeting.
He spoke about his love for his father, his love of his teammates, and then how much he loved football and was going to give the guys the very best he had.
In the midst of just losing his father, he said that he had our back as a football team, as a player, as an individual. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in that room.
He's grieving. He's reeling.
There's no roadmap for this. You don't say, I'll do this like I did something else a few years ago.
And he goes out and is positively flawless in that unique Brett Favre way. Falling back, throwing into triple coverage, right on a dime.
Touchdown! Brett Favre is on fire tonight.
And the entire country is saying, can you believe what this guy is doing after what's happened in his life?
You bring this script to a studio and they throw it out. I mean, this is like fantasy.
Everybody goes through this, sadly, a family member passing, and everybody's got to go back to work at some point. But those people who do it in their office don't do it in front of a national televised audience.
I was so worried that I would lay an egg in that game. And I think people watching would say, hey, it's understandable. His father just passed away. I didn't want that. I wanted to leave that game and be proud of the way I played and want him to say, hey, he played well. But no one could have imagined, including me, that it would turn out that way.
America's most well-known number 4 has thrown for 4 touchdown passes in one half of play.
What Brett Favre did got the country to fall more in love with him.
I can't believe he went out and did what he did today. I'm so sad for him, but so damn proud of him.
He was one of the great athletes that could lift himself up to that. This is a moment I want to treasure, and I'm going to give it everything I have.
I knew my dad would want me to play, and I didn't expect this type of performance, but I know he was watching tonight.
It was almost divine intervention. But then you just sit back and say, no, it's not. It's Brett Favre.
The number 4 gutsiest performance of all time. Emmett Smith shoulders a big load for Big D.
If you ask me to pick the one day I remember most of my life about Emmett Smith, it was that day.
The day Emmett Smith ran for 170 yards and caught 10 balls to get most of it with one arm.
He was going to end up with the all-time rushing title and get the accolades.
Emmett Smith has eclipsed Walter Payton.
But that day,
where he whipped the Giants with one shoulder,
the legend grew a bit.
In 1993, Emmett Smith and the Cowboys were trying to defend their Super Bowl title, and the regular season finale was a game they desperately needed to win.
At stake here is a first-round bye and the number 1 seed.
Good luck to you.
Whoever wins this game has got a lot clearer path to the Super Bowl than the team that loses.
In such a pivotal matchup, the Cowboys would need their running star. But soon, he was one of the walking wounded.
All of a sudden, I make one guy miss, and I'm up the sideline running. And Greg Jackson come up on my left side, ride me down to the ground, and something happened in my shoulder.
Smith is down. Emmett Smith is down at the Giants' 30.
We knew he was hurt. We obviously didn't know to the extent that they knew down on the field how badly he was hurt.
A little separation, as they called it. I bruised my sternum at the same time. I was having spasms up in the neck. It was a different kind of pain than I ever experienced before in my life.
The training staff, once he hurt the shoulder, told him, we can't do anything for you. You got a choice. Play or no play.
So it's just a question of pain and how much can you tolerate.
The pain was secondary. The question was, how do we win a football game?
The answer? By turning in our number 4 gutsiest performance.
He had one arm, and he just wouldn't quit.
Smith for 9, Smith for 3, Smith for 8, Smith for 7.
These were not get him out in the open field and have him miss a tackle or two. This was up the middle run. I mean, there was no fear in him.
You have to remember, this is pre-field turf, when there was the old, hard, artificial turf. Things like cement.
And every time I got hit, you could hear that in my chest. That's what it sounded like. I'm in the hole saying to myself, no pain, no pain. But I'm feeling all the pain.
The amount of respect he won in the Giants locker room that day was massive because they knew what he was going through and they were blasting him. Bang, bang, bang. And he would just pick himself up, go back to the huddle. Play call would come in and it would be deuce over left tackle. Let's go again. Cowboy players, they remember players telling him, you don't have to do this.
He wouldn't hear of it. You could have pleaded your case for hours, and there was no way you were going to get him off the football field.
To watch a guy like that sacrifice himself for the betterment of his team. As a former player, I was just filled with admiration.
He goes out, rushes for 168 yards, totals 229 yards.
He was the Cowboy attack that day.
Everybody was inspired by it. They get home field advantage, they get a bye, and it sparked a Super Bowl run for them.
Still, the debate rages over Smith's number 4 ranking.
I don't buy it. Emmitt Smith, for my money, is underrated. I think Emmitt Smith doesn't have to take the backseat to anyone.
They were able to win that second Super Bowl because of what Emmitt Smith did that day. Knowing that, for me, it ranks that at the top of any list.
Coming up, our countdown gets downright creepy.
What you wonder is who was on the sidelines. Was it a trainer or was it Vincent Price?
What you see will remain with you until the day you die.
Relive the best games from...
One key to a gutsy performance is emerging from it with your body still intact.
I'm in a league of my own. They ain't ready for me.
Terrell Owens did just that when he returned from a broken fibula in only 6 weeks for Super Bowl 39.
And I'm going to have a leg and they can't stop.
Owens came back from injury looking no worse for wear, but his former teammate Jerry Rice was not so lucky in 1997.
It looks like his left leg gets caught up underneath him.
After tearing his ACL in Week 1, Rice showed guts returning in Week 16, but then re-injured his knee.
He took a ferocious hit.
Jerry Rice is really hurt.
One of Rice's former teammates also turned in a gutsy performance, only to emerge less than whole.
The number 3 gutsiest performance of all time. Ronnie Lott chops off his finger.
Colonel Kurtz-like insanity. Apocalypse Now, Ronnie Lott football moment.
Lott was the heart of darkness in San Francisco's army.
Dark Ages, World War I, Civil War. Pick the period. He could have fought at Troy.
And then he is clobbered.
But it was this warrior's decision to amputate part of his finger that made him our 3rd gutsiest performer.
Ronnie Lott was on anybody's all-tough list before he sacrificed a digit. That put him over the top.
I don't care. Let me end the game. In the heat of battle, you're talking to a warrior.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you be psychotic and yet under control?
Ronnie gave me just sort of a little turned up grin and then went, wow!
Can you be neurotic and yet under control?
This is a guy who utterly refuses to lose. He does not understand the concept of giving up.
Ronnie Lott up there, jumped to the next
I used to sit there and watch Patton movies, and he would say, I don't tolerate losing. Is that the look that I had before a game? Yeah, that's the look I had before the game.
When Lott put his game face on, San Francisco became a dynasty. In his first 4 seasons, he won 2 Super Bowl rings.
And the 49ers are turning Super Bowl 19 into a rout.
When Ronnie Lott and those guys started playing, they were fun to watch because they would knock the crap out of people.
Violent, non-stop, relentless pursuit.
Oh, my goodness.
Damn, it's great, isn't it?
But in 1985, with the team on the way back to the playoffs, Lott ran into a buzzsaw.
Ronnie Lott hurt his left hand on that play. Oh, yeah, they caught it right there. I'm sure he has one of those fractures where the bone comes through the skin because there is blood involved in that thing.
When his damaged hand muffled his attack, rather than risk missing a game, Lott had his finger chopped off, losing 1 digit in our number 3 Gutsiest performance.
Well, it ranks as really gross, and what you wonder is who was on the sidelines. Was it a trainer or was it Vincent Price?
Peel back slowly to reveal the garish, the grotesque.
Gross, definitely. I'm not going to call anyone who's got the stones to do that insane.
He chopped it off himself. He went in there at the buffet, chopped off his finger, said, I'm sick of this thing being infected. It's not like somebody bit it off.
You ask a guy today to clip his finger off playing football game, they'd be like, please, I'll play next year.
I love football to death, but Terrell's not cutting any fingers off football.
The legend of Lott continued. Even without his finger, he earned 2 more rings. And our number 3 Gutsiest performer got 2 thumbs up, way up, from the Hall of Fame voters his first year of eligibility.
Whether it was a Lou Gehrig in baseball or Bill Russell, you grew up reading those stories about the young, intense individuals that overcame this and overcame that. That was Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott was one of those mythical sports figures.
Coming up, which Hall of Famer took it to the limit and beyond?
He just bared his soul, exhibited his will to the universe.
It's time to score.
Making it to the Super Bowl is every team's dream. Overcoming injury to get there is a personal triumph of the gutsiest order.
Woodson injured his knee, tore it up terribly in the first game of the season.
I came back from an ACL from the same year, and I played in the Super Bowl.
In fact, he was the first NFL player to ever make that kind of Super Bowl comeback.
I think most people look at that and go, are you kidding me?
We're going to pay the price to keep it going from here.
In 1998, the Atlanta Falcons were on the fast track when head coach Dan Reeves was stopped cold. Reeves underwent emergency heart surgery.
That's devastating.
Incredibly, he was back after only 2 games to lead the team to the Super Bowl.
First guy who's going to get a game ball is Dan Reeves.
And the support. I can't tell you how much that means. It just showed how fragile life is.
Dan Reeves' gutsy performance to come back, just an afterthought. It shouldn't be, but it is.
The number 2 gutsiest performance of all time. Dylan Winslow conquers playoff pain.
Nobody called Kellen Winslow soft. At least they didn't call him soft twice.
In the early 1980s, Winslow was a Hall of Fame tight end who redefined the position.
What we think of the tight end now, it started with Kellen Winslow.
He's an inviting and talented target.
He was so fluid, and he was so graceful. But my God, look how big he is.
6'6", 255 pounds, could run like a wide receiver.
We had never seen anything like it.
But it was an iconic image from one of the greatest games ever played that immortalized our number 2 gutsiest performance.
Everybody sees the great picture of Kellen Winslow being helped off the field, and I think that embodies the spirit of that game.
He was beyond the point of physical exhaustion, and yet he just kept playing.
Kellen wasn't even hurt. He was tired. Guys get tired every week, but you don't put them on the list.
Never once did anybody ever help me off the field. I got my butt off the field with a broken back, broken ankles. I've had it all. But you get off the field. Be a man.
The night before the game, Winslow considered the challenge of facing the Dolphins on their hot and humid home turf.
And I went to bed that night wondering if I'd ever played in a game or done anything in my life where I gave everything that I had.
The heat's a huge factor. It saps you. And you know what? I think it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. It really tests your desire.
At first, Winslow's Chargers were not tested, running up 24 unanswered points.
Chargers looking to get more. Bounce to Winslow. Winslow down to the 1 yard line.
This is too easy. This is entirely too easy.
But it soon became a seesaw battle with Don Shula's Dolphins.
Kellen Winslow makes the reception.
The Kellen Winslow gave, as I call it. Winslow was just unbelievable. We couldn't stop him.
Bounce to throw. Has protection and time over the middle. He's got his wingman. Winslow touchdown.
In a game that also featured the most total passing yards in a playoff, our number 2 gutsiest performer grabbed an NFL record 13 catches for 166 yards.
Throw-ins to Kellen Winslow. Who else?
Nobody's going to compete like Kellen. He's got the heart of a lion.
Kellen Winslow makes the reception.
Was it gutsy? Yeah. Kellen was cramping up and he was dehydrated and, he just bared his soul.
That's just fatigue, folks. And there were a couple of times our players went to help him up. I said, don't help him up. Make him use his own energy to get off the field because he'd drag himself off the field and then he'd come in and help beat us in the next series. It's tied 38 all. He has played every play as hard as he could. Kellen Winslow with a Hall of Fame day, but now he's down and out of the game.
Despite his condition, Winslow returned to block a field goal.
I was placed on the do-or-die team.
Block, no good.
When the game was on the line, I was the jumper, and I liked that.
We go to overtime. Bob stands in, finally throws it. Here comes Kellen Winslow. He got the first down. That was as big a play as any.
The snap. It is down. It is up. It is good.
I guess I am not one given to superlatives, but if you did not like this football game, then you didn't like football. The Chargers gave all they had today. Kellen Winslow being helped off the field.
It was one of the great throwback performances of all time. He did everything but crawl on his hands and knees to cross goal lines in that game.
He played overtime. Big deal. Try coming back from a knee surgery. He's out. Who's the next one?
People will say, well, he was grandstanding at the end. Give me a break. You gotta be crazy if they question him.
What Kellen Winslow did in that game defines what a football player is.
Coming up, which player breaks a leg to crack our number 1 spot?
You either have to say he's the gutsiest player of all time or the craziest player of all time.
And Derek.
Before we reveal the gutsiest performance of all time, let's recap our list of players who wore their guts on their sleeve.
Number 10. A broken wheel can't stop a McNabulous day.
If that doesn't take guts, I don't know what you're looking at.
Number 9. Dan Pastorini gets no flack for his new jacket.
Dan Pastorini is a tough individual.
Number 8. Wounded knee. Phillip Rivers runs through it.
He's the heart and soul of the team out there playing hurt.
Number 7. CD becomes the Super Bowl MVP even with a migraine this big.
Did I realize how bad he was hurting? No.
Number 6. A bum knee can't keep Dale from being a force.
6th. Was this poll taken in New York? Was this taken in Secaucus, New Jersey?
Number 5. Brett Favre's big night for Big Earth.
It was almost divine intervention, but then you just say, no, it's not. It's Brett Favre.
Number 4. Emmitt Smith makes the mind control the body.
I'm in the hole saying to myself, no pain. No pain.
Number 3. Ronnie Lott gives the NFL the finger.
To me, it sounds insane.
Number 2. Kellen Winslow's epic night in Miami.
Nobody called Kellen Winslow soft. At least they didn't call him soft twice.
And now, the number 1 gutsiest performance of all time. Jack Youngblood plays on a broken leg.
In pro football, playing with pain is a big part of the game.
ID, playing tough.
But former LA Ram defensive end Jack Youngblood went well beyond the call of duty. Now that's a tough guy.
If there could be a logo for tough man of the NFL, it's Jack Youngblood. First of all, listen to the name.
Jack Youngblood.
Jack Youngblood.
Jack Youngblood.
Well, to consider that Jack Youngblood played throughout the playoffs in the Super Bowl with a broken leg, you either have to say he's the gutsiest player of all time or the craziest. And I know he isn't the craziest, so he's the gutsiest.
Even today. You see him at the Hall of Fame. It does look like he could suit up and kick your ass.
Well, I'm not going to argue with Jack.
Let's start naming football players who have played in Super Bowls, played in championship games with broken legs.
Fumble and almost picked off by Youngblood.
I would imagine it's a very short list, and it's one of the reasons he's number one on yours.
Jack Youngblood's path to the top of our countdown began in Dallas in the 1979 NFC Divisional Playoffs.
The guard picked me up, flipped me over, and the fibula snapped just above the ankle.
And you can tell Youngblood is hurting.
Trainers come out, we go to the locker room, and I said, you need to tape this thing up. He goes, I'm not going to do that. I said, you're going to do this. He gets the pictures back about that time. He says, see here, it's broke. I go, well, I understand that. I said, tape it up. I can still go play.
He was not going to be taken out of the game. That was just not Jack.
I thought it was my responsibility as the captain of the team. You didn't have an opportunity to play in playoffs that many times. Let's go and take advantage of it.
In the biggest single upset of the season, the Rams stunned the Cowboys and won a weekend in Tampa Bay for the championship.
They're all saying that you won't be ready to play. I mean, you shouldn't play anymore. Why? I guarantee you I'll be ready to play.
Jack Youngblood is the Marlboro Man. He will just whip your ass by looking at you.
He epitomized the tough football player. And the guy you see holding the helmet, with the mud all over him,
If you want to be in the trenches with somebody, you want to be in the trenches with Jack Youngblood. It was a Ray Nitschke, a Chuck Bednarik.
I always kind of thought of Jack and John Wayne as the same, that old swagger, how you doing, Eric? Jack Youngblood.
You just knew that John Wayne was going to get the bad guy. You just knew Jack was going to muscle his way into the backfield, sack a quarterback, and make a play that really was a difference in the game. He did it every single week.
The week after he broke his leg in Dallas was no exception.
The Rams appeared in the NFC Championship game. For the first time, they won it, inspired by the presence of Captain Jack Youngblood, playing in pain with his broken leg.
Anybody that's ever had a sprain on their leg knows how much it hurts to walk, to stand, to basically just sit. And here was Jack with a crack in his leg, and he went out and played.
That's the way to get it down there.
We've had players play with serious injuries before, but to play at that level,
Jack Youngblood made this time.
that takes that into a whole other area of athletic accomplishment.
Well, he did it.
But let's get serious. It was the non-weight bearing bone. Jack, you've been milking this for a long time. I'll give you a lot of credit for that.
Dan, give me a break. You cannot call Jack Youngblood a wimp. There are some urban legends out there. I don't think that's one of them because I've talked to people that were around Youngblood. They all believe how seriously he was hurt.
How has Jack Youngblood played on what we know is a fractured lower ankle bone? I don't understand this.
Joe Theismann, now he had a broken leg. The bone was sticking out. What he had was a hairline fracture where the bone was cracked.
You can tape that and play with that.
It being public, I don't know that I would have made the same decision. You can imagine guys taking shots at your leg. That's just part of the game.
You're putting yourself directly in harm's way.
I thought he was going to stay down, and he won't do it.
And that does take a lot of bravery and a little insanity.
He must have had a super high tolerance for pain.
Or just a total lack of brains.
To me, it's just sick.
Number 85, Jack Youngblood.
I just saw that and went, I'm not surprised.
I'm ready to roll now.
After the divisional round, the NFC title game, and the Super Bowl, Jack Youngblood started in the Pro Bowl to cap off the #1 gutsiest performance of all time.
Every year, 50 guys bail on the Pro Bowl. Oh, my left pinky finger's so sore. For him to go there and play with the crack in the fibula, wow.
Mind-boggling.
That's what it's all about. Under a lot of pain, coming out playing this game.
Till the next guy comes along to dislodge him, I'm happy with seeing him at #1.
All the men on our countdown felt different kinds of pain, but every one of them responded the same.
Let me go out there, let me do my job.
I don't want to hear it.
I'm not going to make an excuse.
Don't ask me about it.
I'm going to play through it.
Let's play.
And that, I think, is gutsy.
We were short on manpower, but we were long on guts.